Good evening, everyone. My name is Mahesh. I am going to be the instructor for this course. I'm actually a program manager with NIST. It's called the National Institute of Standard and Technology. It's part of the Department of Commerce. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. My PhD was in additive manufacturing. I've been in the government doing research. I've been a bench scientist for probably like 12 to 14 years. And then I did some work with the Department of Energy as a program manager. I managed a couple of institutes on manufacturing. And then again, I'm back to NIST, where I started, and that's what I do now. I work on a program called Manufacturing USA, and I'll talk more about these programs. It's kind of related to the course as well, right? So in terms of like the public-private partnerships and how you see companies, academia, and the industry engage together on projects, on better stuff, right? Like, so in terms of innovative research, right? So this is not like an in-depth course on any of these areas, right? But rather a combination of all of these areas. So the idea is you touch upon manufacturing automation, you also talk about industrial robotics, you talk about additive, sustainable manufacturing, digital factories, and smart manufacturing. What you learned really in this particular course is how does all these come together? We are really the intention of this course is really to talk about smart manufacturing. What do we mean by that? What do you mean by advancements, right? And what are some of the disruptive technologies? So I've kind of picked a few here, right? So yeah, I will be spending a few, like maybe a couple of lectures on industrial robotics, a couple of lectures on additive manufacturing, sustainable manufacturing. What do you mean by digital factories? How do you kind of model these digital factories? But having said that, I do not intend to go into details on like, okay, how do you do a 3D modeling about a unit manufacturing process, for example, right? So those are going to be extra learning for you, right? So you will have to do, that's why it's a project-based course. You will have to do some sort of self-learning to get yourself used to those kind of things, right? So if, for example, if your final project is going to be something on a 3D simulation of the factory and you're trying to do some sort of what-if analysis, right? So to make production efficient or something like that. I'm going to give you the liberty to use your, like for example, one of you said that you've learned your software, how do you kind of make use of it? This is the time to be creative. You will get a lot of chances in this particular course to kind of bridge these individual aspects and how do you bring those together for smart manufacturing, right? In fact, we'll be looking at a video today together, like it's 20 minutes or 15 minutes, but this is manufacturing in the 50s. Towards the end of the course, just to reflect back, like what changed, what has changed, right? So if you're talking about additive, like for example, in your industry, right, talking about machining versus additive, it has a very different feel, right? So machining from the core to additively manufacturing a particular part. So those kind of decisions, what if scenarios, what do you really mean by smart manufacturing? What is it and how do you kind of implement it, right? There's a lot of background things that goes into when you talk about smart manufacturing. It's not that, you buy a new machine. If you buy a 3D printer, that's not really smart manufacturing, is it? Or if it's an industry, if it's a factory, and if you're looking into a production flow, if you're trying to retrofit a particular line, right? What do you mean by that, right? So to make it smart, what do you have to do? Sometimes it does make sense. Like those are the what-if scenarios I'm talking about. How do you do that, right? So, and you can also plan for a lot of things. Like, for example, that's why I have sustainable manufacturing. If you're talking about smart manufacturing and not considering sustainability, right? So, for example, you have to be energy efficient. You have to be material efficient. You have to be, right, cost effective. There's a lot of things that you will have to consider. So how do you make those kind of trade-offs? That's where the creativity is. Just think about this, right? So towards your end of your semester, towards the end of this course, what will be that project? You have to think about it right now. From the 4th or 5th lecture, you should already start forming teams. And don't wait for me to complete the last or the 13th lecture on smart manufacturing platforms to think about it. You have to learn on the way. It's like a process. And it's really going to be fun. And you'll be surprised. Some of the projects that you'll hear towards the end will be awesome. There's a lot of motivation. I would think about your final project as something, what will you put on your resume, right? Everyone, once you leave this, many of you are going to graduate, right? So if you want to put something on your resume, what would that be? It should be something that quality. Think about it that way.